So I know a lot of people is high right now. A lot of people are high right now, and you probably don't want to hear me talk about marijuana. The reason that I'm going to talk about it, right, because there is some issues with marijuana and the effects that it has on the brain, right? And this is science-based things. This is not what you feel when you get high. That, to me, I don't have a problem with. I really don't care. You can have an issue with this. A lot of you all, you may own a dispensary. You may sell it, right? You may smoke a lot, and you feel that it helps you particularly probably ease your stress or your anxiety. You most likely smoke it during that area, and then you probably become super reliant on it to the point to where you got to always smoke weed. And if you don't smoke weed, you probably have more anxiety when you're not high and you're sober. And a lot of you all probably can't stop smoking weed, marijuana, cannabis. I don't understand why you all have different names and what does it matter if it's a different name. I'm talking about the same substance, right? Now, I used to smoke weed and I used to sell weed, right? So I know what I'm talking about. And I sold a lot of weed when I sold it, and I smoked a lot of weed when I smoked it, right? And it's a lot of members in my family today that smoke a lot of weed, right? And I've seen the negative effects. First of all, I want to deal with that. Everybody is different, right? Everybody isn't Snoop, right? And Snoop is in the 1 percentile class. He has tens of millions of dollars, and he has a whole entire team to do stuff for him, right? Black men specifically have the worst mental health, right, in America. So I have a vested interest of seeing us perform at a high level and have our executive functions operate at a high level. And the reason why most people won't tell you this is because you know somebody. The reason most people won't tell you this is because you know somebody that smokes. You know somebody who sells weed, right? And you know somebody who has a dispensary or product. So therefore, even if you have a negative issue, right, or experience with it, you won't speak on it because weed has become a religion to where the people who smoke never say anything negative whatsoever. The problem with that is that everybody's different. So while one person can smoke weed for 30 years and maybe it doesn't affect them the same way, when somebody else that smokes weed and they have underlying issues and mental health issues in their family, such as bipolarism, schizophrenia, right, and other different things, this can make their issues harder. I mean, not harder, but exacerbate. This can make those issues, increase faster and show up, right? So I've seen this in my own family to where people who smoke, all of a sudden, their mental issues start to peak, right? So now their mental illnesses start to show because it ran in the family. And somebody else that's their friend or somebody that they know, they smoke and they ain't got no problem, right? And this is something that we don't talk about at all because everybody is focused on their experience. So it's never a nuanced conversation. So people who sell it is never going to put a warning on it to say, hey, if you got these issues in your family, then this could make your mental illness worse. They never going to say that, right? They're never going to put any warning label. Now, if they did, I would respect it more. I would respect it way more. But most people do not do that whatsoever. Right? And then we don't talk about the different forms of intake when it comes to cannabis. People always talk about the cannabinoid system and it being in our bodies and things of that nature. But we don't talk about the way that you smoke weed. When you put fire to it, changes the chemical compound of weed. Fire changes the chemical compound of everything once you smoke it. Right? And it becomes a toxin to the brain, slowing down blood flow and decreasing motivation. Now, I'm not the person to debate you on any of this because debating, right, is for the experts. And I don't consider myself to be a super expert on the subject of particularly marijuana or cannabis or weed. That's what people like Dr. Wesley. Dr. Wesley wrote an entire book on the chemicalization of marijuana, right, and the effects that it has on the body and the brain and exactly what happens to your estrogen and your testosterone while smoking. And he found out, of course, while smoking and while it's in your system, it decreases your testosterone, it increases your estrogen, and has the opposite effect for women, increasing that estrogen. On top of that, some of you ladies, y'all shouldn't smoke because aesthetically it don't look good on you. your eyes start to look all low, and then you start getting them little black lips and little black rings around your eye. You know what I mean? And then your attractiveness decreases, and you gonna have to put on extra makeup to try to keep up for it. Now, the problem that has arrived with, I think, marijuana, and I'm probably going to do a deep dive in this to bring out all of the science and just have it laid on the table. Because here's the thing. You can smoke and you can do whatever you want to with your life, but please listen to all the information regarding it, especially information that's not aligned with your current beliefs. If it's not aligned with your current beliefs, it's even better, right? Because now you're getting non-biased information and perspective for you to make decisions. But oftentimes we only want to listen to things that are aligned already with what we believe, and anything outside of that we disregard. So therefore, you're never going to be able to intake truth or add any value to your experience.
Somebody said some of us can't sleep.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's deal with that, because there's a lot of things that can help you sleep, right? And I made a list of it. So everybody has ChatGPT, right? You have Google, right? Right? So, first of all, let's not act like weed is the only plant that has effects within the mind and the body, or the brain and the body. Number one. And that's why I put out that list of different things that you can utilize, right? Because you're talking about increasing melatonin within the body so you can get to that proper rest, which there are multiple factors that you can do. You're talking about stress. And when you talk about stress, you have all sort of different techniques that one can utilize when it comes to decreasing their stress, right? So, I mean, even small things from breathing tools that people can utilize, ashwagandha that people can utilize, and even CBD, right? Not in the smoking form, but in the CBD form, which has the medicinal benefits. People don't talk about that enough because people want the psychoactive effects of it so that they can feel high. Now, 90% of people that I know that smoke weed, they don't smoke it for medicinal benefits at all. They smoke it for the psychoactive benefits, so that they can feel high. Now, it's been shown that a lot of people used to say weed makes me more creative. It's shown that weed does not improve creativity whatsoever. Weed makes you feel more creative, which is a different thing. You high and you think your ideas are better. You're high and you thinking, you'd be high. Somebody say, why you dissing women, talking about it makes you look... Listen, I'm being honest. What you want me to cuddle your feelings? Can we acknowledge... Let's go to another thing that we can acknowledge. Can we acknowledge that this weed that we have now is not the same weed we had 10 years ago? 20 years ago? It's not the same weed we had 50 years ago? 100 years ago? It's not nowhere near the same weed that our ancestors had. Can we acknowledge that? They didn't have ranks. They didn't have edibles. Can we acknowledge that? Can we acknowledge that this is an entirely new type of weed and new strains? That the THC levels is way higher than it's ever been in history? Can we acknowledge that at least? Like, if we can do this, then go about your day, smoke your weed, and we can move forward. You feel me? We can acknowledge that it's chemicalized and super synthetic in a lot of places. Not all. There's some organic sources. There's always exception to every rule. And let's do this when we have high-level conversations. Do not make it seem like, do not take it as a personal attack. Do not make it seem like I'm making a general rule over everybody and everything when we say one thing. Let's be intelligent and nuanced and be critical thinkers when we are talking and analyzing. Like, let's deal with that. Can we acknowledge the fact that most people do not smoke weed to increase their mental health whatsoever or mental health benefits? Right? It's mostly 90% of the people you know that smoke weed is particularly for the psychoactive effect of actually getting high and feeling that high. Like, let's acknowledge that before people start talking about, what about the CBD? What about the cannabis? What about all the medicinal? Stop it. You're not even smoking it for that reason. Like, if we can acknowledge this, then we can start having real conversations about things to where smart people are talking to other intelligent people, right? And they're not personalizing it. You can, me personally, I think all things in moderation are fine. I think you could smoke a little bit. Now, I think you may want to drink a little wine or something. That's what you want to do. Some doctors say even a little bit of alcohol is bad for you. But I think all things in moderation are fine. But when you smoke every single day, 3 times a day, you a junkie. Can we acknowledge that? You addicted and you a junkie and you over dependent upon it? Can we acknowledge that? Like if we can acknowledge those, then we can start and we can move forward. If you can't acknowledge the truth, then that's because you want to live a lie. If you can't start with something acknowledging a truth, that's because you only want to live a lie. That means that your perspective and your narrative that you have and your reasoning filter is all based on lies. If you can't acknowledge, oh, well, this is true, but this is true, although I do this is true, and this is true. If you can't acknowledge that, that's because you're comfortable with the lies and the foundation of what you believe is not based on truth. And when people start talking about you can't define other people's truth, you actually can. In some situations, science can define things. There's real science behind things. Everything ain't just about what you feel when you get high. Some things are actual science-based. And the science base is something that covers more of the mass general population. Your personal experience does not matter in a conversation when we're having a conversation on a topic that is about the masses. So even if only 10% of people had underlying negative effects when they smoke weed, that's still a high level of the populace that I would want to warn and give that scientific study to, so that they can know whether they should customize their efforts in decreasing their anxiety and their stress and things of that nature a different way.